In this lesson, we'll cover walkthroughs. So you may say, well, what is a walkthrough? Well, a walkthrough is a way that you can actually walk through your space in 3D to see what it looks like as if you were really there. Parts of the walkthrough include the path that you'll walk along, key frames or segments throughout the walkthrough path, and also the camera, basically what you're looking at or focusing on. Now, looking at this Revit model, we currently have a walkthrough already defined, but you don't see the path. However, if you look in the project browser in the lower left, scroll down to a group called Walkthroughs, you see there is Walkthrough 1 already created. So let's take a look at this. Right-click Walkthrough 1 and click Show Camera. This will basically show the camera path for the walkthrough. Now, to view what the walkthrough result looks like, let's click Edit Walkthrough in the upper right. This will open the control panel for the walkthrough. Now, let's look at the end result first before we actually go back and create a walkthrough and modify it. So to play the walkthrough right now, all you would actually see is the walkthrough camera flowing on the path. You don't technically see what it looks like if you were there. So what we want to do is click the button on the ribbon called Open Walkthrough. This opens the view as if you were standing at the beginning of that walkthrough within the space. Now you can control this view to be rendered, hidden line, shaded, or custom setting of what you want. To play this, simply click Play on the ribbon, and this will start to play based on your settings, based on the number of keyframes, and also based on the camera angle of what you want to focus on. Again, you can also change the visibility of what you see in this space. So I could hide some of the electrical elements, some of the lighting elements. I could shade the walls. I could take the focus off the mechanical system, so it's not the only thing emphasized with color or in shading. Again, totally up to you on what you want to do as far as the walkthrough itself. The walkthrough, again, is being stored inside of Revit. We also can export this out to save it as an AVI file or basically a video file that you could play standalone, not necessarily from within Revit. So you can include it in a PowerPoint presentation or show a client visually over the web this animated walkthrough of what the space looks like. Now, once the walkthrough is done, the player actually ends. Right now, the walkthrough view is open. I can click the X in the upper right to close the walkthrough view, which takes me back to originally where I was at. Now that we know what the walkthrough does, let's look at how we can actually modify one of the walkthroughs that are created, and then we'll create one. In the project browser in the lower left, right-click Walkthrough 1, click Show Camera. With the actual camera path being displayed, click Edit Walkthrough in the upper right. Now we're back to the same place we were at before. If you mouse over the camera path, you're going to see three things. One, the blue path, red dots, which are keyframes, and third, the actual camera. On the controls, on the options bar, the control is set to active camera, which means you can change the position of what you're looking at within the camera. So for example, I can slide this camera to a keyframe and then select the actual dot at the end of the keyframe to reposition the actual camera of what I'm looking at. Again, totally up to you on how you want to control and position this active camera. So I can easily just change what I'm looking at or focusing on. If you click the active camera dropdown, you could click Path. Path will allow you to grab one of the keyframe dots and readjust the path or drag it to make it longer. If I change path to add keyframe or remove keyframe, this will add additional dots based upon where you click, adding additional controls to either refocus, slow down, or speed up your video. Click Modify in the upper left, and then just click on the screen to deselect. So now that we saw the video, we saw the controls of how to make the walkthrough video. How do we make it? Well, to do that, we need to go to the View tab on your ribbon. So let's click View. Once on the View tab in the Create panel, click the 3D View dropdown. Here, you see Walkthrough. So let's go ahead and click Walkthrough. Now, the first thing you want to do is make sure, obviously, you're in a plan view of some sort where you can actually set the path of where you're walking through. This happens to be a plan view of level 1. It's just cropped, so I only see parts of this view. The other thing you want to make sure of are the settings on the options bar. One, if you want this view to be perspective when you look at it. Also, the offset. If you're using millimeters, about 1750 millimeters. If you're using inches and feet, this is roughly, let's say 5 feet 9 inches. Now again, you could adjust that personally to your eye level or use a different height of whatever you want to choose. Now the next thing I need to do is basically start to click to place keyframes. Revit will tell you this in the lower left of what to do. So I'm going to assume I'm going to start here where the actual hallway starts and just start to click and keep clicking. As you click, you're defining the actual path you're walking. Every click defines a keyframe. Now, once you've actually finished creating the walkthrough, click Finish Walkthrough. This will create the walkthrough based on the path that you just selected. Now, to edit and modify the path, camera, or keyframe, click Edit Walkthrough. This will display, again, as you mouse over the walkthrough, the camera, which now you can grab the target, reposition the target, grab the camera, slide it keyframe to keyframe, then grab the target and just reposition what your focus is when you're walking around the actual path that you're taking. And I could do this for every keyframe, again, adjusting what do I want to watch, what do I want to look at as I'm walking through the space. Now, if you want to modify the path, I'll change the active camera on the control bar to path. This is where I can adjust the path. Maybe it wasn't the actual path that I wanted to take. And if you wanted to add, remove keyframes, you can click Add or Remove. Once I'm done making all the modifications, I can go back to my active camera. Once I'm done modifying, I can click Modify. Now again, if the frame or path disappears, you can find it in the project browser, right-click on Walkthrough to, Show Camera, brings it back. Finally, to play our video, to see this, click Edit Walkthrough, and then you can click Open Walkthrough, and then click Play. This again will play the walkthrough through our view based upon the default settings of what we're looking at for the properties. Now, as we're walking through, you can see this animation is basically a wireframe. To change that, I can see the properties on the left in the property box for the walkthrough. This is where I can edit the visibility graphics, the display, and other various settings for the walkthrough itself, changing what this view looks like from a coloristic standpoint, also from the elements that are visually displayed within the view, basically using your standard view techniques to control the view itself. You also can control the color, the shading, and other elements. And I can see that if I scroll down in the actual property area box toward the bottom, I have keyframes where I can verify and change the keyframe settings. I also have within the properties box the rendering settings. Clicking Edit for rendering will change it from draft, including sunlight or artificial light, and if you want clouds. Go ahead and click Modify. Lastly, if you want to export this, you can export this from the large R in the upper left to export, and then I can export my actual image or animation using the Export Images and Animation, in this case walkthrough, to an external file. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at creating walkthroughs. We looked at what a walkthrough is, basically a way to walk through your space three-dimensionally. We looked at an existing walkthrough, the controls of the walkthrough, how to edit the path, the keyframe, and the camera of the walkthrough. And then finally, we created a walkthrough.